Hi, I'm Brad. Sorry about the wind. It's really windy here all the time. Today is the start of building high tunnels or greenhouses for our planter beds. We have planter beds here for 10 years and we can't plant until June 1st and we're done by September and it's just too cold otherwise. So we're going to put greenhouses over our planters, and you can see the planter behind me. And above is a little mock-up of a PVC and how it's going to be. I had to do that to make sure that it missed the roof of the gazebo there. But we're going to put these tunnels, these high tunnels in over our planter beds so that we can extend our growing season. And I'm going to use PVC and I'm going to show you how it all works. So let's get started.
Before I forget, don't forget to subscribe and click the notify button so that you know when I release new videos.
So here's the mock-up. That big ring right there is the mock-up of where the regular ribs will go. That's 8 feet tall, 12 feet wide, and we're going to now cut some pieces to go in there. They've got to be 23 feet long to fit it.
So I have 1.5 inches. It has the highest tensile strength of 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, 2 inch. 1.5 inches is the toughest one. And so I'm going to make these 20 footers 3 feet longer. And to do that, I have to reinforce the joints, and that is done with 1.25 inch piece inserted in the middle of them. So right now we're going to cut 3 feet, 2.25 inches pieces, and then we're going to reinforce that joint.
So while I'm lengthening these 1.5 inch PVC pipes and putting 1.25 inch pieces in the joints, you probably can't see that, it's moving so fast. We're going to drill holes in the ground and put T-posts in the ground because there's serious rock below us. And then these will go over the T-posts and we'll bolt them down and they can't blow away and come loose.
Okay, so I've got some marks made, ready to put in the posts. There's a mark, and you can see that. We're all going to put in posts to hold the PVC posts. So let's start drilling.
We live on a mountain of rock. It's really deep and thick shale rock, and it's right below my feet. So I'm using an SDX max hammer drill using 1.5 inch bit to get down through the rock so I can put the T-posts in to hold the PVC posts.
So I'm about to cut my USA T-posts, 6 footers, into 3 footers. So I can put them in the holes.
Now I'm marking off 2 feet of the T-posts, and that's how much is going to stick out of the ground. This 2 feet will make the outside edges of the PVC pipes stand up straighter than just curving. Okay, so now we're going to put the T-posts in the ground, and the green part goes in the ground, the red part stays out of the ground, and it's 2 feet out of the ground, 1 foot into that, down into the rock, and this will make the PVC post stand up real straight, give it real straight edges at the first as it comes out. So these babies are pounded down into rock. You got to use hydraulic power to get them back out. And so this is a really good thing. We'll drill through the PVC, through the T-posts, and bolt them, and they will not come out of the ground. Okay, so now we're going to attempt to put these 23-foot PVC poles up on top of and slide them down on these T-posts. And these T-posts are exactly the size of the inside diameter of these PVC poles. So it's quite a challenge. Plus, the PVC poles are used to being straight, and even though we're in the heat of the summer, you have to be really careful because they might want to break, so you make some extras just in case. I also had let the glue set on these for about 2 weeks before I did this. I wanted them to be really solid and firm. And so we finally got the first one on. Now we're going to set these other 6 posts up and get ready to go. And there's always something that happens. These T-posts create a little burr on the PVC, and you got to get a grinder and sharpen them down and get the new post on. And then you've got these 23 foot poles sticking up, and you got to figure out how to put them, bend them over. And of course there's always one that doesn't want to bend and it breaks, and so we just cross our fingers that it's going to work. And the heat of the summer is going to help them get their new shape. But it was quite an effort. Now it's time to cut some poly pipe. We got this pipe out of the oil field that they were throwing away, so I'm going to cut some 6-inch pieces of this poly pipe and then split it, and that will be a cap that can go over each of the PVC poles as a reinforcement where we put bolts through, so that the bolts don't crack or bite too hard on the PVC itself. So this poly is very, very durable. It works really good, and I have to make 4 of these per pole. There's going to be 2, one on the top and one on the bottom of each PVC post. So you can see how they're going to work here. We're going to put them over it. We're going to glue them in place, and then we can drill through them and bolt through them, and we should not have an issue with the PVC pipe at that point. So now we're going to install these poly braces, and the purpose of these is that PVC does not like to be drilled through, does not like to be compressed. It'll crack and split and break. So these poly sleeves just happen to be perfect size, so that when they're compressed, they are the ones taking the pressure. And then I use a special glue. It's called Lexel. They're not sponsoring this. It's just what I use, and it never dries. It never goes hard, but it secures the poly to the PVC, and then the PVC is not going to crack or split or break when I put bolts through it. And I swear this stuff will stick to water. It makes a permanent bond between the PVC and the poly. So I'm going to put 2 of these per pole, and I'm going to put them 4 feet up and then down at the ground, and they're going to hold the side rails that brace and hold the curtains and the top. So now it's time to build the side rails that go on those poly brackets. Now this is rough cut wood. It's exactly 2 inches wide by 6 inches high, and I have to build 8 of them, 4 for the tops and 4 for the bottoms. And my sawmill can only cut 20-foot length, and so these have to be 23 feet, and of course I make them another foot so that I can have some extra to cut off once I get them up there and make them fit perfectly. But I use multi-nail strips to put them all together, and then when it gets to the bottom one, you'll see here in just a moment that I put poly. I affix poly with that high-powered glue and with extremely long screws to the bottom ones, so that none of the wood sets on the ground to rot. So the bottom rails will fit on the sit on the poly, and there you go. You can see I'm putting the poly on now, and it'll sit on the poly, and then the poly sits on the ground, and so there's not going to be any wood rot on these rails that are on the ground. So this is quite a job. I've compressed a whole day's work into about 1 minute and 30. So here's 2 of the completed 4, 2 bottoms that'll go up, and then I'll create 2 more and take them up. Now, since this is just bare wood right off the sawmill and it's rough cut, it needs to be preserved. So I have another video. I'll put the link up on the top there where I use used motor oil. But since I didn't want this wood to be black, I used clear, brand new motor oil with some diesel thinner in it. and we're just putting that on, and we'll let it soak in overnight. And these babies will be treated to be water tight when we get them put onto the greenhouses. And then all of the rest of the wood that goes into these greenhouses has to be sealed, and we use the same motor oil and diesel fuel concoction, and it does a wonderful job. In fact, it really makes the wood look beautiful. And so I got my Princess Chrissy here helping me get all of this wood, and there's quite a stack. This is just a little tiny portion of it, but we're getting it all sealed and ready to put together. So once the sealer is dry and the glue is dry and everything is ready, then it's time to haul them up to the high tunnels up on the mountain where the high tunnels are. And these were not so big that I couldn't just carry them, so I didn't need the tractor. But there are some beams coming up that I have to use the tractor to get up there. I just haul them right up to the high tunnels and then put them in their place. This is one of 4 bringing it up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to drill through the poly brackets and through the T-posts and through everything. And then we're going to put these big long bolts through the rails and the T-posts and the PVC and the poly and snug them down tight so that these babies can't come apart. Now, I can't drill through, I have nothing that can drill through these T-posts. So actually what I did was I raised them up and put a notch in them that I could drill through and put the bolts in. So there it is, bolting them down. I'm going to get all 4 of them bolted down, and then we'll move to the top rails. So now it's time to put the top rails on, and I was too lazy to walk all the way down to the shop and get my chain grips, and so I just grabbed some rope and tied it up, and then had Miss Chrissy come and help me set these up and drill through them and then put the bolts in. Now these weren't hard to drill because they're they're up above the T-posts, so these drill pretty easily through, and you can crank them down pretty tight. Nothing breaks, nothing was having any issues. That poly pipe was really protecting. So I've now got all 4 bottom rails built and in place. I've got 3 of the top rails in place, and this is the last top rail to go. So I'm just lining it up, leveling it up, and getting it ready. You can see the splice in there because it's so long. And I'll get the bolts in, get it all locked down tight, and be ready to build the end caps. Okay, so this next step is to protect the PVC pipes. I'm using white UV paint to paint the outside of the pipes because when the curtains are down, they're exposed directly to the sun, and I don't want any issues as time goes on with the sun shining through the plastic. Even though the plastic is UV protected, I don't want any issues with these pipes being degraded by the sun. So I'm painting the outside of all of the UV pipes. Wow, was that a challenge. Now the next operation is to build the end caps, and I opted to build this one outside on the ground and didn't realize that it was really going to be heavy, and it's quite an ordeal to carry it in and put it in place. So I built the rest of them in place. I put the piece of poly down, and then I put the end cap on top of that and screw it down into it with glue. So here I come. I'm going to carry that monster in, and man, once you get this stuff is full size 2x4s, 2 inches by 4 inches rough cut lumber, and that wall was heavy for me, and I didn't have a helper that day, so I was just doing it totally by myself. Bring this thing in. And once all the braces are in place, there's a lot of wood there, a lot of weight. As you can see, I've notched every one of the uprights so that they cradle into the PVC and hold the PVC in its form where it's at, and then it goes on to the poly pipe below so that it's not resting on the ground, not on the dirt, and so I won't have any issues with wood rot, even though I've treated them with oil, and they're beautifully treated, really nice, but I didn't want any problems, so I put it on the poly. And yeah, I really had a challenge here, but I don't give up, and when you don't give up, you eventually win. The things around you have to give in, so I didn't give up, and there it is. There's one wall just about in place. It'll have to have some side braces put in. So as you can see here, I created side brace stabilization rods out of 1-inch EMT, connected them to the side rail and to the end cap, and then if you see right there in the center, I've got my electrical already run, and I've got the brace on this other side over here. And then I have to brace and shore up the door, getting ready to put the door in. So this is all shored up and ready to go. There's that power line again. And they are getting there. They've got 2 end caps done and 2 to go. Now it's time to create the beams, 2 big long beams. These babies are full 2x8, and they will go across the top of each greenhouse, and each bowed pole will rest on them, and they will hold any weight of any snow that may come. And you can see that my multi-nail is not really very big for it, but I'm going to put them in anyway and build 2 of these things. I have to build them again about 23 feet long, and they're absolutely tough. Now, these babies are too big and heavy for me to carry up by myself. I can barely lift these things, so I'll have to use the tractor to get them up to the greenhouses. So I've loaded the beams on the tractor and taken them up, and now I've got to use a ladder because these babies are so heavy, and get them in place, get them up on the top so that when I flip them over, they support all of those PVC hoops, and I don't have any problem with anything in the winter. Now the snow usually just wipes right off. As soon as the sun comes up and a little heat gets in, it just sloughs right off, but I just don't want to have any to deal with in the winter time because it is really cold right here. And so this is putting them up, getting them in place, and it's just unbelievable how nice it's turned out. So you can see all 4 beams are up and ready to go to the next operation. So the next thing I did was I built brackets to hold onto the beam and brace the beam up in the center. Probably didn't need to, but I just did it anyway. I put in 2 T-posts in each greenhouse, and then I welded the brackets to that go up and give me an adjustment to push on the top beam. So the next operation is to make the doors for the greenhouses, and to make the doors we're going to plane the lumber down from rough cut 2x4s to commercial cut 2x4s, because rough cuts are pretty slivery, and we don't want to be slivery for the plastic that's going to ride on these and for the humans that's going to rub against them and hands. So we're planing these down, making them really smooth. Then we'll oil them up and water preserve them, and then right here I'm cutting them up and making doors out of them. And here we have 1 door done, 3 to go. This one's built and mounted, braced. It's pretty tough, pretty solid. So the next process is to bend the wiggle wire track to fit the PVC hoops. And gladly I only have to do 4, just the outside ones. The inside ones will have the plastic resting straight on them. So bending 4 and then installing them. Then of course it's time to get out the Lexel again, this sticky stuff, and I didn't have gloves on at this point, and you get it on you and it is really, I mean, it's like tar. It's amazing. So I'm going to put the Lexel on, and then I'm going to put the wiggle wire down on at Lexel so it's glued in, and I'm going to put screws down through the wiggle wire track into the PVC. Then I'm going to let it set for 2 days before I do anything with it to let the Lexel harden up. The next process is to install curtain cable guides. These are your small eyelets that the stainless steel cable will ride in, just to keep it so it doesn't droop or sag or fall down, and keeps all of the pulling strings in their place. The next process is to thread the 1/8 inch stainless steel deck cable and put it across the back pulley there. That back pulley is going to hold a weight I'll show you in a moment. And then I'm putting terminal clamps on as I put it through the guide and through another pulley. Now the terminal clamps work in conjunction with these stainless steel pulleys, and they work to pull the curtain up and to let the curtain down, and the weight across the back is what helps pull against the cable to help pull the curtain down. Then the cable goes through the rail and over onto a winch, and that winch is what will crank the curtains up and down, and I'll give you a demonstration of that in just a moment. These are some weights I made. I poured concrete into some heavy 2-inch pipe cut in 4-inch pieces, and put some hooks on the top, and they hang off the back of the greenhouse and keep the tension on the curtain cable. So now it's time to start cutting the plastic sheeting. All in all, I'm going to cut 10 big pieces of sheeting, and it is 6 mil WV coated farm plastic, really good stuff, will last quite a while. And so I've got to cut all of the pieces now and get ready to start putting them up. Okay, so now I'm going to put some felt tape across every little metal piece, every little sharp piece of wood, everything, so that it doesn't have an option to poke through the plastic. This is ripstop plastic, so it won't make a bigger hole anyway, but I don't want to have any holes. And then I'm going to adjust the piece of plastic that I cut before I nail it on. Want to get it all in its right place. So now it's time to put the plastic down and hold it in place. This is called batten tape, and I'm using a roof nailer, and this batten tape is 3/4 inch wide, and it's a vinyl tape that is really, really strong, and it keeps the nails from penetrating the plastic and just holds on to everything. So that's how we put the plastic on and keep it in place. And as you put it on, the plastic becomes drum tight. You can just tighten it a little with your hand as you're nailing it on, and it just becomes perfectly drum tight. Now we put it on the entire piece first, and after all the batten tape and all the nails are done, then we cut the door, cut around the door, 3 sides of the door, so the door will work. And here's the finished product. Doors all cut out, latches even on in place, and we're just about ready to put the roof on. You put the end pieces on first, end caps on first, and then you put... So now it's time to put the roof on, and I had a camera malfunction and lost the video portion, but I have some slides from my phone. So the roof is 2-ply. There's 2 layers on the roof, and it's just pulled tight into the wiggle wire, both at the same time, and we're going to pump air between the 2 layers to keep the top layer from being whipped by the wind. So now it's time to put the curtains on the curtain rod, and the curtain rod is just a piece of chain link fence top rail, and I took the plastic and just folded it over, made a channel in the plastic, and glued it, of course, with Lexel, and after a couple of days of sitting, it was ready to go. It's so perfect. It's like it's hot melted on there. And so we're putting the plastic on the curtain rod, and then we're going to attach the curtain rod to the pulling wires and pull them up tight. So now we're going to tie the curtain rods up to the stainless steel cable. And to do that, I'm going to poke a hole through the plastic and it's ripstop, so it's only the hole that it is. It won't go any further. I'm going to put this 1/8 inch white polyester rope that is UV and abrasion resistant, and I'm going to tie it off, and then I'm going to put it up through the pulley and then back to the electrical terminal eyelet and tie it on with it all up tight. I taped the overhanging roof plastic up. Now it's time to let it down and let it all get covered up and be protected from the weather and ready to roll. Now we're going to use the batten tape and the roof nailer, and we're going to nail the side curtains down pretty tight because the top rail is up tight where it's going to be. So we're going to nail them down pretty tight so that it's virtually windproof. Here's how the side curtains work. Engage the winch and crank. Notice how improved the garden is too. It's taken me all summer to do this. Now, since this wasn't a kid, I had to contrive and build everything, so I needed vents to put the air from the blowers into between the two sections of roofing. So this was me building the blower attachments. So this is what the blower vents look like when they're finished and installed. That's just UV protection paint on them, and I made them out of the 1.5 PVC, and they are just to keep the plastic from touching each other and getting stuck. So the last thing left to do is to hook up the blowers to blow air between the two roof pieces to keep the top part from being wind whipped. This is just 3-inch dryer vent, and these blowers are made for greenhouses. They're very durable little things, and they've got a lot of power. I have to choke this one down about 25% of what it can put out. So this is what the roof looks like with the blower going all puffed up like a giant marshmallow. It's really stable in heavy wind, really nice. It doesn't move at all. And the temperature differential is amazing. It's 67 outside, but it's 103 inside, and this is an overcast day. The sun's not shining directly on it. And the plants are just loving it. And the dogs are just loving it. And the builder sitting in his chair is just loving it. It's cold outside by now, and it's just absolutely warm inside. So there it is, a summer of planning and preparation, a summer of building, all boiled down to 28 minutes for your pleasure. I appreciate you watching. Subscribe if you like my videos. Click the bell icon to be notified when I release a new video. And I hope to see you on the runway one of these days, sending happy thoughts your way and sending positive vibes in your direction. Captain Wingnut, Cougar Ridge Ranch, signing off.